What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Patriot Backtalk. I'm your host, Kyle Johnson. Alright, a lot going on in the last 2 weeks, and I've got a bunch of stuff that I want to get to. First, I want to mention that I am going to be taking a week off for the next episode. So there won't be an episode on August 9th, but we will resume August 23rd. Life just gets crazy in the early parts of August, and I won't be able to get everything together for an episode. My sincerest apologies, but I promise I will be back and running on August 23rd. But today, first, if you didn't happen to see my Facebook post, I recently had an episode removed from YouTube for violating their misinformation policy. Episode 5 was the entire timeline from the 2020 election till the January 6th events that occurred. And I was notified that it was being removed for misinformation, because as we all know, if you present an opinion contrary to what they want you to think, you're spreading lies and disinformation. But don't worry, YouTube. I've learned my lesson. This slap on the hand has changed me fundamentally, and from here on out, I will only present topics and talking points that align with your preset notions of truth. Not. I reposted episode 5 with a different title. I called it, "The 2020 election was not rigged." Winky face emoji. Look, folks, YouTube is legally allowed to set any rules they want. But it's worth fighting back against double standards in the small things, because those become bigger. If I had posted that I was at a BLM riot, and I talked about the importance of violence in bringing about social justice, I would have been just fine to keep that video, despite BLM being a terrorist organization by definition. It's a stepping stone, a line in the sand that we need to call out corruption in the major corporations that are in fact the ones allowing misinformation. Now with this, I'm completely aware that my time on YouTube is now limited, but I don't care. I'd rather be removed and switch to a different platform, difficult as that may be, than allow these tech giants to continue to lie and dictate what information is allowed to the public. I'm also not going to go quietly. I want them to have to actually remove me for speaking truth, because then it's on them, and I will have done everything that I could do. If you're sitting there still unsure or even skeptical about the 2020 election, by the way, please do me a favor and watch the movie 2,000 Mules. There will be no doubt in your mind after watching that the election was, and I cannot stress this enough, stolen. You have nothing to lose by watching the movie, and if you don't want to pay for it or can't find it, contact me, and we can set up a watch party at my house because it's that important. Second, and more pertaining to today's episode, I want to highlight a couple of things going on in the news, and I want to put together a little bit of a game plan for how we can turn this country's trajectory back from inflation, recession, and cheating that is so rampant thanks to Uncle Joe and the Dems. Spoiler alert, Donald Trump is not the only magic pill that will make everything instantly better. So let's dig right in. Recently, the stories haven't been earth-shattering, but there have been very annoying headlines that have been consistently driven into the news to try to make a lie into a truth. As we talked about in a past episode, repeating a talking point over and over to the public is their way of trying to soften a lie in our minds until we are either so sick of hearing about it that we tune out anything that happens, or we start to believe it. The biggest story they're trying to push is this January 6th hearing that's attempting to condemn Donald Trump for inciting a riot, despite everything he said on that day being completely in support of peaceful protest only. So basically their plan is this. They don't care a lick about finding the truth. That's not what this is about. It's about keeping Trump from being able to run in 2024, because despite having apparently beat him in 2020, they are scared to death of this man and what he can do. Everything in this trial is a complete farce. And I especially like the story they're spreading about him becoming ballistic in the motorcade that day and trying to grab the driver to get him to take him to the Capitol. Nothing in that story added up. Everything from the so-called witness who changed the details of her story multiple times to the basic understanding that inside the president's vehicle nicknamed the Beast, he couldn't have just leaned over and grabbed the driver. It's a long car, and the president's sitting in the back, and between him are multiple Secret Service agents and staff. And this story was quickly squashed, and they pretended that it didn't happen because it was picked apart by people so fast. And this has kind of been the trend of this entire hearing. They're also claiming that Trump did nothing to stop the riots, even though, despite fact-checkers pretending this isn't true, it wasn't his job per se. That job goes to the organizer of the Capitol Police, Nancy Pelosi, who rejected a request for additional National Guard troops that was sent. This entire hearing is just a disgusting attempt to yet again slander and lie about Trump to keep him from being able to help America prosper. Dems and libs don't want prosperity. There's no control in that. When people are thriving alone in a private sector, we have no real need for government intervention. It's the best way to run a country. But they need leaders like Trump and DeSantis to be ousted so they can go back to pretending that we need them. Another huge red flag in this case is the fact that people in Trump's side are not allowed to cross-examine or build a case for Trump. That's no longer a hearing, folks. That's a socialist sentencing committee. And we should not be okay with this. Unless you want to be put on trial for something you didn't do and not be allowed to defend yourself in front of a biased panel of people, you should take notice and contact anyone who will listen about the evil of this. So the January 6th hearings will continue for a while. We've already seen like Steve Bannon, who has been put in contempt of Congress, which I actually find kind of humorous because the approval rating of Congress right now is somewhere in the mid to high teens. It's about half of Joe Biden's approval rating, which basically tells me this. Most of the nation is holding Congress in contempt. So the fact that they're holding Steve Bannon in contempt is just kind of a joke. And we'll see how pathetic and untrue the final verdict is, but realistically, they have no criminal case against Trump, so a guilty verdict would be a complete fabrication. Still worth keeping an eye on, as always. Another headline worth mentioning is the assault weapons ban bill that has been presented in the House. And I read through this official bill, and it's scary. It basically puts federal criminal charges on anyone possessing AR-15, AK-47, or any AR-style pistol weapon or magazine over 10-round capacity. They list out the brands and guns that are included in the ban, and it's extensive. This is another one worth contacting your reps about and making sure they know this needs to die before it can ever come to a vote. As of now, it's still just presented and not on the floor for a vote, but we need to nip this in the bud before it gets any momentum. It's a complete and total violation of our Second Amendment rights, and the bill even states that the purpose is to regulate assault weapons and to ensure that the right to keep and bear arms is not unlimited, and for other purposes. I love that nice, really specific ending there that allows them to throw anything they want into the bill, and for other purposes. Now, these headlines, among others, aren't surprising to those of us who have become wise to the media and their games that they play. We're used to watching them twist and contort the truth, and it starts to become easier to look through the lies and see facts. In a lot of cases, like CNN, you can pretty comfortably assume that the opposite of whatever they are saying is true. That goes for Uncle Joe and Kamala Harris, too. Of course, there you have to weed through mumbling, losing their train of thought, and continual mistakes to find out what they're even talking about. It is comical at times that we have the worst president in American history and quite possibly the most inept vice president in history in office at the same time. So with all this happening, and only getting worse, how do we start to come back as a nation? Because I, like many of you, haven't given up hope completely that we can turn this country around. We're in dire straits right now, no doubt, and we are edging ever nearer to the point of no return. But we're not there yet. There is fight left in the spirit of this nation, in the hearts of Americans, that isn't fully gone. And I, again with many of you, am looking at where I can direct my fighter's attitude. I've chosen to do this podcast as one way of spreading truth and helping ignite a fire in people's minds that listen to me. And I know I hammer this point home often, but I've also become more involved in contacting my reps. They aren't some otherworldly beings that are untouchable. We can contact them and voice our opinions. But when it comes down to it, the next two elections are going to quite possibly be the most influential in American history. 2022 is our shot to take back control of the House and Senate soundly and help minimize Joe and Kamala's damage over their last 2 years. Then in 2024, it's our job to have shorn up election integrity with our majority and get in a president who will take the bull by the horns and bring some passion back to this economy and to this country. Is the best option in 2024 Donald Trump? For some of you who have felt turned off by his demeanor, I would challenge you to find a more impactful and effective option with a track record of getting things done before you say you won't vote for him. Do you want another 4 years like we're having right now? I've said it before and I'll say it again. This isn't about personality tests anymore. We don't have the luxury of choosing our favorite public speaker who makes us smile and has a nice calming effect. And to be honest, there isn't a Ronald Reagan-style candidate out there right now who was easy to listen to, but also effective. We've got to choose a guy like Trump. He's not the only piece to the puzzle, and without help and support around him, he can't do anything. But with the right team around him, he will get us back on track, because he won't care about running over people's feelings to do the right thing. And that is what we need. Dan Bongino summed this up the best. Cutesy time is over. We need to landslide the next two elections and run the Dems and Libs out of Washington. Then, and only then, do we have a chance to take back this amazing land of the free by means other than civil war. But that's a topic for another day. Okay, I'm going to wrap this one up. I sincerely hope that this isn't the last time you'll hear me on YouTube, but it likely could be. If that is the case, I'll be back on Rumble and Truth Social as quickly as I humanly can. In the meantime, stay strong, stay aware, and of course, never back down or be ashamed of your patriotism. God bless each and every one of you. We'll talk soon.